Okay,
Yep, that's good.
right. Well, this is the starting point. I'll tell you something about this photo in a minute. Can everybody understand me? Hear me?
Yes, all good.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Well, this presentation, first of all, some facts about the archipelago. Then to show you how beautiful these islands are, some scenery. And then, of course, the minerals, the sites and the species. And as usual, the photos are by myself and the crystal drawings from the normal sources. The archipelago itself, as I just said, are really in the middle of nowhere. The red arrow here is the location. And to give you an idea, to the east in Portugal, that's 1,600 kilometers, 1,600. To North America, and then I mean Newfoundland here, it's 2,500. When you go north, you come to Greenland, that is almost 4,000. And if you go straight south, then you won't encounter anything until you get to Antarctica, and that's 13,500 kilometers. So you understand that this really is in the middle of nowhere. And if you take a look at the map here, the position is on the mid-Atlantic ridge. Everybody knows that this is the mid-Atlantic ridge, which goes from the very south to the very north. And the islands, the Azores, are approximately on the junction of three continental plates. That's about here, as you can see. And you can see it on the next slide. On the west, you have the North American plate, that's up here. In the east, the Eurasian plate, and the ridge is about here, this red line approximately. But then on the south side, the African plate comes into play. And the rotation and the interplay between these three plates resulted in a complex environment with rifts and faults, and thus the very irregular location of the islands. And so they originated about 36 million years ago. And unlike, for instance, the Hawaiian Islands, here there's no subduction zone. There are no mantle plumes or nothing. It's all plate tectonics, which is the reason why the islands exist. There are 9 islands in total, and a whole lot of underwater volcanoes. The total stretch area, you can deduct that a little from the scale in the upper right, is some 450 kilometers or 300 miles wide. San Miguel, that's here in the eastern part, is the largest island. And that's the island that I visited in 2007 and in 2023 in May this year. And that's a place where all the minerals come from. The highest mountain of the Azores and of Portugal as a whole is on the island of Pico, that's here. And it's 2,350 meters high. As you know, probably the Azores Islands are self-governed archipelago, but which belong to Portugal. So the main language is Portuguese, but luckily everybody speaks English. So that's because if Portuguese was not my strongest side. The last volcanic eruption was on Fayal, and that's here in this island. And that was actually still in 1957 and 58, so that's quite recently actually. And on this photo, you see the remnants of that eruption. So they are still active, but not. There's no danger at all. But they are active. Then San Miguel, as I said, is the largest island. That's where we were. It's about 60 kilometers long from west to east, and 10 to 15 kilometers up from north to south. It's dominated by the Agua de Pau volcano that's here in the middle. It's more or less at the center, and the Lagoa de Fogo, which means fire lake, this thing here, is the center point of the caldera. And the two main mineral hotspots are at the flanks of the volcano, so it's relatively close to each other. There is a third, more or less interesting site. It's mainly for olivine crystals. That's the beach of Mosteros here on the west side. We have been there, but only for a beer, so we didn't collect minerals over there. But so all our mineral activities were here in the center and around in the region of the volcano. Now then, the main capital is Ponta Delgada, where is also the airport. Our hotel was up here, so we were relatively close to the center. Well, the islands are, let's say, natural beauty. To start with this one, I show you a few landscape pictures from various places. Of course, the sea is everywhere, and every picture that you see is the sea is present. Mainly on the north side, you have the northern coast. I mean, you have a lot of steep cliffs like this one, these up here. And as it is in the Atlantic Ocean, so the tidal differences between, well, let's say the tidal differences are quite large, as you can see that here. The tidal height can be between 6 and 9 meters, as are all in the region here. This is the Lagoa de Fogo, a fire lake. It's just in the middle of the volcano. Very often this spot is in the clouds, as you can imagine, because yeah, well, all clouds keep hanging there, so we're lucky. So you have to pick the right moment to see anything. And this is the there is a road down, but it's very hard to go there. And there's nothing where you can't find anything. So it's for mineral collecting, it's not very interesting. A very touristic landmark is this spot. In the foreground, this is the Lagoa Verde, that's the green lake. And in the back here, there's the Lagoa Azul, which is the blue lake. And now in this picture, it's not very clear the difference. But when the sun shines and you stand where I stand here, you can see the color difference clearly. And but this is one of the most well-known landmarks of the Azores. This outcrops like these are scattered all over the island, and of course they're all volcanic remnants, and that's even more prominent in the next picture. That's this one, and these are clearly the remains of a small caldera. These things, if you look in the background here, you see these things all over the place. There's very many of these volcanic remnants that you can recognize as being parts of old calderas. And probably the most, yeah, let's say iconic, spectacular photo that I have is this one. This is a lake, of course, you can see that here's the road. I'm standing up here, a bit higher. So you can see how large this thing is. Yeah, it looks like a bowl, and it's without any exaggeration, it's the beautiful photo that I made during our stay there. And yeah, so as you can see, the islands are a great place to visit, also for tourism, but also for mineral collecting, and that's what I'm going to start now. There are two main mineral locations. The first is a natural occurrence in the form of a quite deep valley, and that's part of the Ribeira Grande, or the Great River, riverbed. in the mountain area at the center of the island, as I said, near the volcano, on the flanks of the volcano, I must say. Luckily, you can get there by car over a narrow mountain road that's here. And at the end, you will find the ruins of a few small buildings that were used a long time ago for the bottling of mineral water, but it's a ruin now. And this place in Mindad is called the ruins of Valle das Lambadas. And the photo in the upper left is from 2007, this one. The other three are from our last visit in 2023. So you can notice the difference in the visible slope part in the upper two photos. This is 16 years ago, and this is this year. You see that there are differences, but the main valley is still the same. The second location is what is called the Pumice Quarry. That's the only accessible quarry on the island. Pumice, as you know, is very light in itself. That's not very interesting. So you have to find xenolites. I'll show you those in the next slide. Both times I was there, so in 2007 and in 23, I had a very easy and very friendly permission to enter and collect minerals just by asking the staff at the entrance. You have to look, as I said, for the xenolithic, if I pronounce that correctly, inclusions, and that's this one. The xenolites that you want are cyanides, and they are not easy to overlook because there are more than plenty of them. They're literally scattered all over the place. And they literally all contain the crystals that you want. For the specialists among us, cyanide is a granitoid, having an alkali feldspar plagioclase ratio from 65 to 90% and less than 5% quartz. If the quartz content increases, cyanide grades into granites. But the cyanide intrusions here are very brittle. They break and crumble very easily, and preserving the minerals is not always an easy task. And this cyanide on this photo here, this is about 15 centimeters, but we picked up masses of them also from 30 to 35, 40 centimeters. And they all contain minerals. The minerals itself, this is the first one. I do them in alphabetical order. Mindad lists 73 different species, 3 of which are type locality, but finding all those is virtually impossible because many of them are super rare. And this agarine, I'm not sure, agarine is quite abundant. It belongs to the pyroxene group, is a clinopyroxene, but to be precise. The bottle green color is a typical feature, but there is another species of the same color that's called arfvetsanite, that comes in a moment. You have to look very carefully at the end faces, and that's the reason, once again, why on the right you see all the crystal drawings. So you have to look very carefully to make the distinction between all these things. And this is agarine can be inferred from the top terminations here and there, as you can see. There's no doubt about the identification of this one, and even less the identification of the next one. This one is so thick that the color is almost black, but the top is unmistakable, as the same as here. And apart from that, it's confirmed by Pedro Alves. That's a guy from Portugal who is a renowned Azores specialist. I contacted him a few times to ask him some questions. I showed him this one, and he said, "Well, this is agarine, no doubt." And you see that this crystal is less than 1 millimeter high. That's the size of everything. There's almost nothing which is larger than just 1 millimeter. So in these cyanides, you have these to break these cyanides in very small pieces to find all the minerals. And you can divide every piece of 2 centimeters. You can divide it once again, and then once again you will probably find new things. So it's very rich, the stuff. The third edgerine is even smaller, 3 millimeters high, 3.3 millimeters high. There are often you see very delicate single crystals, and very rarely, this is the only one that I saw. They are bicolored. The top is more green than the rest of it, and the black background here, that's amphibole. Then the second black species is enigmatite. The crystal shape and the faces of this one are different with the edgerine that you just saw, and typical for enigmatite, just as the vertical striations, and this top here is typical. Enigmatite is an inosilicate, and the color of which can be red-brown to velvety black, like this one. And especially when it's thicker, then it becomes more black, of course. The top faces are unmistakable, and this is also an enigmatite in another habit. It's thinner and therefore more reddish brown. I suspected that this was enigmatite, and it's really confirmed by Pedro Alves again. So this is also without any doubt. This is the first question mark. I'm not completely sure about this one. Because of the quite rough surface, my best guess is anite. Anite is a member of the mica group, but it could also be ilmenite, which also occurs here, and it's also hexagonal. But normally the crystal structure is a bit more complex. I'll show you that one later. And normally it's more shiny. Anite is the most likely, but it will be further analyzed, because I have a few of those. So I can sacrifice one of them. I already mentioned the name arfvetsanite. Arfvetsanite belongs to the sodium amphibole supergroup. This is one of the simplest habits. As you can see in the crystal drawing, this top is exactly the same as here. So once again, there's no doubt about the identification. It's a clear example of the monoclinic structure of this mineral. Confusion with edgerine would be possible, but the top faces and the overall crystal shape indicate that this is arfvetsanite, and it's also it's accepted by MinDOT as such. So there's no one who had any complaints about it, and I think that goes even more for the next one. That's also an arfvetsanite. Of a more complex habit, but nevertheless clearly recognizable if you look at this drawing. This is another habit, another structure of arfvetsanite, and you see, and you see this face here is the same as this one, and here here is the same as the back side over there. So this also is without any doubt is arfvetsanite. Then we get to astrophyllite. Astrophyllite is quite abundant, and for me one of the most appealing species because of the fine color, but also because it always forms good crystals, single ones, groups. Here to start with, a single one to show the triclinic crystal structure. Look at the size. This thing is just 0.2 millimeters high. All these things are under 0.5 millimeter, so finding them is not too easy. Luckily, they color quite visible on mostly a white, sometimes black, but mostly white background. So that's the reason why you can find them. But that's not always too easy. Because they're very, very small. And the next one is probably the best one I have from this species. What you see is three ultra thin lath-like crystals behind each other on a pedestal of amphibole again. This is really spectacular, but also no more than 0.4 millimeter high. Combos are quite often visible to find. This is a combo of astrophyllite and fluorinato pyrochlore. Pyrochlore is a bit complex nature here, so I'll come back to that in a moment. But combinations like this make very appealing specimens, I think. This is a group, an example of a group, as they are quite often can be found. And they're very, very, very sensitive. You have to take care that you don't blow too hard because they will fall off. You have to be very careful. Then we come to bastnäsite. This one is slightly corroded, as you can see, but it's a good example of how bastnäsite tends to form piles of hexagonal sheets. And the brown color is a typical feature. You see that this is really a pile. This is the crystal shape, the structure, I mean. And these all are, let's say, crystals grown upon each other, but slightly corroded. It's the only one I have, so it's quite rare there. So I don't have a better one. This is, let's say, a complex species. Chefkinite is just as black as most of the other black species like amphibole or enigmatite. But so without formal analysis, you can only try to identify them by the crystal faces and shape. I inferred the ID from this one by the REM photo of Chefkinite at Aqua de Pau from Pedro Alves again. That's this one, and you can see this basic structure is clearly visible, and I think that it's. Oh, by the way, Chefkinite is Chefkinite CE. This is called. That's the only variety that exists is found at the Azores. The CE can be replaced by lanthanum, calcium, or thorium. So actually, this is Chefkinite group. This is a better, more convincing crystal in my view. One of the other characteristics of Chefkinite is a very high luster. That's good visible here. But this is unmistakably this shape. So this is the third or fourth black crystal that comes into play. So you have to, if the crystals are not well developed, then it's impossible to make out which is which. But if you find good crystallized examples, then by the hand of the crystal drawings, it is possible to make good distinctions. And this is not the last one. This comes another black species. Then this is the greatest uncertainty of them all. From the comparison with this crystal drawing, you could make an educated guess, I suppose, but chiapinoite is, in fact, extremely rare at the location, or anywhere in the world for that matter. This is so far it's only known from here, but well, this really looks as a match. But analysis will be undertaken because this is so rare that you just have to let it formally be analyzed before you can make a real judgment. And chiapinoite is named after Luigi Chiappino, an Italian guy who did a lot of work the last 15 years in describing all the minerals and all the rarities that occur around on Agua de Pau, on the volcano. And he is also the one who discovered this in the first place. It's one of the three type localities. This is the second. Is it chiapinolite or something else? It could be, maybe it could be fluorite, it could be apatite. Those also occur there. And this is, let's say, less clear than the last one. But this is the same crystal, but from the same crystal drawing, but from a different angle. And the green needles here are once again agarine, and you can see that at the tips here. Then clinopyroxene subgroup. Pyroxenes, as you know, are a huge group that contains of two subgroups with different crystal structures. Orthopyroxenes are the smallest subgroup, and they are orthorhombic, as the name indicates. While clinopyroxenes, the much larger group, are monoclinic, and the variety in crystal shape is huge, as you can see from the old Atlas der Kristallformen. You probably know that. This is just one page of 9 volumes, and the funny thing is that this first crystal shape is exactly this one. So this is, it's hard to read, but it's really pyroxene, clinopyroxene subgroup. So, and these things here are astrophilites in the background. This is, without any doubt, Fergusonite. Why? On an amphibole, Fergusonite is a niobium oxide, and there are more niobium minerals found here, but this is the one with the most contrast and the best visible crystals, and there is no doubt about the ID. You see that this one is only 0.2 millimeters, so the smallest of the smallest. And the same goes for this one, and that makes the photo a little unclear because crystals of this shape are very, very hard to get sharp. And Fergusonite tends to form double terminated spindle-like crystals like this one. As you can see here, I have some from the Eiffel in Germany that are exactly the same. The orange crystal, once again, is a pyrochlore, and I don't know what the white one is. It's hexagonal, so maybe it's an apatite, but that's just a wild guess. Another black, sorry, yes?
Is nepheline a possibility for that one?
As far as I know, the nepheline doesn't occur there, but I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think so.
Okay.
But we should have to look it up. I don't think so. No, I'm not. No. Okay. This is the next, let's say, black species. Catophoraite is sodium calcium amphibole subgroup, or member of the amphibole supergroup. Here we go again. And the Fe2+, as you can see here, is dominant, therefore it's called ferrocatophoraite. As far as I know, most of the amphiboles here are ferrocatophorites, most of them. You already saw arfvedsonite, which is sodium amphibole, so it's a bit at the same level, but those are much less abundant. This ferrocatophoraite is, you can almost find it in any piece of rock, but once again, nice good crystals are well, not too many. These are two crystals together with clearly visible end faces, and this is even sorry. This is even more clear than the last one, because you see this roof here, which is the same as this one in the crystal drawing. Then I have to excuse myself for the quality of this photo. I tried it many, many times, but this just didn't work because this is too small with very little contrast. Fluoroapatite is my own interpretation because of the hexagonal crystal shape and the colorlessness. You can imagine that this is fluoroapatite, which occurs there. It matches, of course, the crystal shape. But there is a slight chance, a very slight chance, that it could be something else. And that could be brytholite CE. Brytholite that occurs here too, has the same hexagonal shape, but the color usually, but not always, is a bit more pinkish. So I'm not really sure about this one, but it's so small and so little contrast that the photo is not to my taste. This is, of course, pure pyrochlore, and this is a zircon crystal, the gray one. And this is the typical shape as they occur there. And that's the last one in half an hour or so. Well, the most abundant of all the species that you can find there are fluor-natral pyrochlores. This is a fluor-calcio pyrochlore, which is much rarer and actually the only one that I found. Fluor-calcio pyrochlore tends to look quite different than what we are used to in pyrochlores. Because in the two upper crystals, the basic isometric structure is hardly visible. Nevertheless, there is no doubt about the ID because this is very typical for the subspecies here. They're not very fancy, but they're the only one that I found. Fluoride, of course, needs no further introduction. Fluoride here is not too abundant. And this one is etched. The surface here is etched, but it's yeah, well, almost sure, almost certainly. Let's be careful. Almost certainly fluoride. And then this is the most abundant of them all: fluor-natral pyrochlore. You find them literally in every small piece of rock. There are a number of these crystals, mostly loose, sometimes a few together, from yellow to orange to deep red, and crystals of 1 millimeter are huge. And in every crack and every piece of cyanide of let's say one square centimeter, you find 2 or 3 of those. And so I have hundreds of those. And this is a yellow one. This is one of the best, I think. Shiny red one, somewhat elongated in this direction. And this is a deep orange one with inner light reflections. This is not a photo effect, but it's a real difference, real effect at the inner of the crystal. On the base, of course, and once again on some amphibole. And we have a deep red one with its color perception influenced by the background, and that's the reason why I had to overexpose it, because otherwise you wouldn't even see it. And but the color of the thing itself is deep red with all kinds of inner reflections, and of course the background normally is black, but deep red on black you won't see that. So that's the reason why I had to overexpose this photo. Fulgoite is the next one. Fulgoite is the second type locality species. It's another extremely rare REE mineral that so far only has been found here and nowhere else. The name obviously refers to Lake Fogo, Fire Lake. It forms leaf-like, flat-looking crystals that are creamy white always, which makes them quite easy to recognize. And I couldn't find any crystal drawing in nowhere on the internet, so that's we have to do without it. But this is without any doubt fulgoite. Then ilmenite, of course, ilmenite resembles hematite, And normally they are not easy to keep apart, but although hematite can also occur here, ilmenite is much more likely and far more abundant because of the much present titanium in the region, in the environment. It's quite safe to name this one ilmenite, of course, as always with a high probability rather than absolute certainty. And what you see also is that this crystal shape is, let's say, double. And that's the difference between, with the anite that I showed you before. The anite that I showed you before, because that was hexagonal also, but just one single plateform. And this is always double, and you can see that here. So this is no anite, but ilmenite, maybe hematite, but I don't think so. And a much more shiny one with some growth irregularities. Yeah, this is in any case not anite. This once again probably ilmenite, maybe hematite. I have some hematites from there also, but they look quite different in comparison to this one. This one I didn't find myself. I got it at a Micromount exchange fair a year ago in Belgium. I don't know of any analysis, but I can be quite confident about the ID because Lorenzonite definitely occurs here in the form of these elongated crystals, needle-like forms in typical rusty brown color. So, well, I think I can believe the ID on the label. Molybdenite, as you see it everywhere, thin, banded, irregular, highly lustrous, steel gray blades. But quite rare here. I just have 2 or 3 finds of it. But well, as everybody knows, molybdenite, this is nothing else. This is a rarity, Peterosite it's called, and it's not very pretty or very sharp, but it's the only one I discovered so far. And the color, the opacity, as well as the somewhat rounded habit are characteristic. So there's no doubt about the ID. And if you compare it with the crystal drawing, you can recognize the basic shape. This is a bit rounded, and this part, the same goes on this side. Here is a very faint line, which is up here. And here's also a very thin line, which is up here. The color, opacity, etc. Petrosite. And petrosite is zinc silicate, as you can see in the formula. And that makes a lot of sense because the zirconium zircon is very abundant here. So it's, let's say, the 2 of the quite abundant elements are titanium and zircon. And this is zircon silicate. So that's maybe something for Frank next time, huh? Frank. This is an exception, and so far that I didn't discover it in the cyanides, but in another small piece of totally different rock that I picked up just because it looked a bit shiny on the outside, a bit glittering on the outside. So this is a sort of an unexpected bonus. This was a rock of, let's say, 6 or 7 centimeters wide, nothing more, and it was filled, really filled with small vugs with pseudobrochite, like this one, and very nice titanite. I'll show you that in a moment. And these pseudobrochites are exactly the same. This is another one from the same rock piece. Are exactly the same as I know them from the Eifel. In Eifel there's a quarry called the Am Rotenberg, where I come well, quite often. And these pseudobrochites are exactly the same as there. This is a very bad photo, but this quartz crystal is just to show you everything that I found. It needs no further explanation, of course, but fully developed crystals here are very small, and not very abundant. quite hard to find as crystals instead of just chunks. And so this is a it's a widespread mineral, but it's quite a rarity at this place. Sanidine is alkali feldspar, although in most places, for instance, in the Eifel or at the volcanoes in Tuscany, sanidine is the most abundant and often the matrix, but here good crystals are not easy to find. This one is stained by iron, of course. Sanidine basically is colorless. And once again, this is the only one that I found in all the stuff that I had, so it's quite rare here. This is even more rare. I didn't find this myself also, but it was part of a personal exchange with someone like last year. The ID is clear enough, colorless, tetragonal, typical for the location, quite rare too, as I said. Look at the formula. Stesiite is a thorium mineral, Th, one of the four that occur here, with thorite, turkestanite, and huttonite. These things are so rare that I didn't find any of them. But thorium minerals are something unusual, I think. Then titanite. Titanium is, as I said, an abundant component of the rocks. But titanite crystals are not so widespread as you might expect. And good crystals are, once again, very small, obviously, and not easy to detect. The color is characteristic, and that might help to discover them, but they are not very abundant. So you have to look very carefully. And this is the titanite that came from the same rock as the rock piece as the pseudobrochite. So you can see a small one up here. This is more wide than high, and yeah, it's 3 millimeters wide, which is very large. It's large, and in this rock piece of 6 to 7 centimeters, there were dozens of those, and yeah, well, very nice, very lucky, because it was not in the regular cyanides. The last species is zircon, Z of zircon. This is a textbook crystal with even horizontal lines on it. You see that this is the crystal shape, and you see the lines here. Zircon is not very rare, but almost always white on white, so it's very hard to detect, let alone to make decent photos. And this is, let's say, quite well succeeded. This one was much easier because it's the contrast with the black amphibole again. And yeah, well, you know that this is zircon. And the last one was yellowish crystal, and that's much rarer. So this is truly a great find. Then I will conclude with some unknowns that need further examination. This one looks, but not more than that, like this long, slim, and brownish zirconoliths that I know as I know them from the Eifel. I showed it to Pedro Alves, but he doesn't know it also. So we have to find out somehow what this is. The same goes for this one. Probably, maybe fluorapatite, because long, colorless, whitish needles with probably hexagonal shape. It could be fluorapatite. And this is the most mysterious of them all. It does not look organic. I'm quite sure that's a mineral specimen. Luckily, I found a few of those. So one will be sacrificed for analysis one of these days when I'm ready with all the stuff. The only well, idea in my own head, but nowhere else, is that this maybe could be say a distorted crystal from the eudialyte group, but that's just a wild guess and nothing more. That's it for today. Thanks. Okay.
Very, very good. Thank you, Henk.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Nephilim has been recorded from the islands, not necessarily that specific locality.
Okay. All right.
But they are
very unusual. Never seen stuff from there before.
Yeah. This was quite a whole. We were there for a whole week. We went to just once to the pumice quarry, but a few times to this Volle. And well, every cyanide rock that you pick up can be divided in numerous pieces. In 2 weeks, we will gather with the 4 guys who were there. So I think that we have, a car full of stuff that we have to go through. But because we all took over 20 kilos in the plane when we came back. 20 kilos of that stuff is a lot of material. I can tell you that.
A long way to go for very small minerals. And then you see the photos and you know why.
Yeah, I know. All these things are less than a millimeter, and most of them are less than half a millimeter. So you have a lot of very, very, very thorough detective work to do before you throw something away.
Yeah.
Because you can always make them smaller, and then in the end you'll find something.
I'm expecting that you'll also finish a stack and then suddenly realize there's minerals you just didn't see there as well.
Sorry?
I'm expecting that you'll do an image stack and then every now and again you'll see something that you just didn't spot before you did the stack. Yeah.
Of course. I've divided all the stuff that I had in pieces was no more than let's say square or cubic centimeter.
You break the things,
and even those you can divide in 2. Yeah.
do you break things in order to find stuff, or is the stuff that's just there weathered and you can't find anything without breaking?
No, you break it. You break everything, because these rocks are buried in the ground, and they stick out a little bit of them stick out of the mud, and then you have to dig them out. So on the outside they're always brown, and you have to clean it. I clean the whole piece, and then I start breaking it in smaller pieces. And there's so many pyroclasts, for instance, that I probably would have killed hundreds of them, but I still have thousands. So, yeah. So I'm making a lot of stuff ready now for a few exchange shows, exchange fairs. We have one, Frank, in 2 weeks, huh? In the upper part of the
Next
Netherlands.
weekend, yeah,
Next week, yeah, sure. Where Frank and I will meet, and I will take a box of those stuff with me. And Steve also a box of crocoids from the Adelaide mine also. But that's a different story.
One of the things I find a little fascinating is I was just looking at the formation of the cyanites. They usually require quite a degree of fractionation in the magma chamber, which is supposed to mostly happen in continental settings. So having it happen in a mid-ocean crustal area is quite unusual by the sound of it.
The whole archipelago is unusual because there's no subduction or whatever.
Yeah,
it's purely plate tectonics, which takes care of the volcanism, and they're part of the Mid-Atlantic ridge, like Iceland, like the Cabo Verde, like the Canaries, etc. And all of those have their own characteristics and their own charm. And I can tell you, we were there for a week. I've been there twice, in 2007 and this year. The scenery is marvelous. If you just are just a tourist, just go there and look your eyes out because it's great, and you can do things like whale spotting because all whales are on the north side of the island. They can do a lot of other things, but the scenery is magnificent. No.
All right, do we have any other questions for Henk?
You mentioned, right, I think at the start that peridot was found in the area.
Sorry, that?
Peridot or olivine.
Olivine, yeah, of
Yep.
course, also
Oh, yeah.
organic. So,
Do you also get olivine bombs as part of the material that's being dragged up?
not where we were, no.
Now in Fayal,
Sometimes sorry?
you see that in Fayal.
On another island, yeah.
Yeah.
And on Mosteros is the beach what I told you about. On the
Right.
west side, there you find olivine and also olivine crystals in sand, loose crystals. If you're very lucky, I was there. We had a beer, but nothing more like that.
Right. Yes.
Sometimes you have to take your own priorities. You know that, huh? That's the only place that I know. Sorry?
There was one picture that you thought a mineral might have been fluorapatite, but you also said it could have been britholite. They are both hexagonal. Britholite is, it's apatite supergroup, and
Okay,
I looked at there are examples of britholite with that pyrochlore from there, and it looks colorless.
Yeah, I know. That's the reason why britholite, of course, is much rarer than apatite normally. That's the same goes in the Eifel here, where I live. Huh? There's britholite also, but that's always a little bit pinkish. And I'm not sure if that's the case in the Azores also, but there is a chance that these two can be mixed up. Yeah, I think. So you're right. Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll finish up for today and look forward to Frank in a month's time.
Yep.
Really
Yes.
great photos. Really nice.
Thanks.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine won't be so great though.
Sorry? Say it
They're
again?
okay, they're okay, Frank.
No, my photos
Yeah,
won't be
forget it.
this great as yours, Henk. So
But you have stuff which is much more rare than what I have. So
I'll bring some. I'm gonna bring some.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Well, thanks for
Right.
listening. It's a pleasure as always.
Very good.
Bye bye.
Fabulous.